What would you do if you saw an employee go above and beyond, not for recognition or reward, but because it was simply the right thing to do? Today's story shows how one moment of genuine compassion changed multiple lives and transformed an entire company. You won't believe what this CEO discovered when he went undercover in his own restaurant. Welcome to the channel. Before we dive in, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you. Let's get back to the story now. Robert Turner adjusted his fake glasses and ran a hand through his newly dyed hair. The gray at his temples, a distinguished feature he'd embraced in recent years, was now covered with brown dye that matched the rest of his hair. He'd grown a beard over the past 2 weeks, and the tailored suits he typically wore had been replaced by off-the-rack khakis and a plain button-down shirt. "You look like a completely different person," his wife Jennifer remarked, studying him with a mixture of amusement and concern. "No one's going to recognize you." "That's the idea," Robert replied, adjusting his shirt. "I need to see what's really happening in our restaurants, not what managers think I want to see when they know the CEO is visiting." At 52, Robert Turner had built Family Table Restaurant from a single location into a successful chain with 47 restaurants across the Midwest. The family-friendly diners served comfort food at reasonable prices, and their motto, "Where every guest feels at home," had been Robert's guiding principle since he opened the first location 25 years ago. But lately, something had seemed off. Customer satisfaction scores were dropping at several locations. Online reviews mentioned slower service and declining food quality. Staff turnover had increased dramatically. The executive reports he received painted a rosy picture of challenges being addressed. But Robert's instincts told him there was more to the story. "I built this business on genuine hospitality," he told Jennifer as he prepared to leave for his first undercover shift. "If we're losing that, I need to know why." His plan was simple: work for 2 weeks as Ray Thomas, a new hire going through the company's training program at 3 different locations. He'd arranged everything through a trusted HR director who created a legitimate employee file. Only she and Jennifer knew about his undercover mission. "Be careful," Jennifer said, giving him a kiss goodbye. "And remember, these people are just trying to make a living. Try not to judge too harshly." Robert nodded, taking her advice to heart. Jennifer had been a waitress when they met, working her way through college. She understood the challenges of restaurant work in ways he never fully could, despite owning restaurants for most of his adult life. "I'll call you tonight," he promised, before heading out to the modest used car he'd rented for the duration of his assignment. His destination was Family Table number 28, a location in a suburban area outside Kansas City. Once one of their best-performing restaurants, it had seen declining ratings and increasing complaints over the past year. Robert arrived 15 minutes early for his 11 a.m. shift, parking in the employee section at the back of the restaurant. Taking a deep breath, he reminded himself that he was now Ray Thomas, a middle-aged man with some office experience who was changing careers after a layoff. The restaurant's general manager, Steve Pearson, met him at the employee entrance with a distracted handshake and cursory welcome. "Ray, right? HR said you'd be starting today," Steve said, barely making eye contact as he checked his watch. "Follow me. We'll get your paperwork sorted, and then Melissa can show you the ropes." Robert followed Steve through the back of the restaurant, noting details that would never be visible to customers but spoke volumes about operations. A broken tile in the kitchen, a scheduling board with several shifts marked need coverage, a dish machine that made an ominous grinding noise. After signing several forms in Steve's cluttered office, Robert was led to the dining room where the lunch shift was just beginning. The restaurant was about half full, with a mix of business people, retirees, and a few families with young children. "Melissa," Steve called out, gesturing to a waitress who was refilling a customer's coffee cup. The woman who approached was in her mid-30s, with brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Despite the standard family table uniform, black pants, white shirt, burgundy apron, she had managed to add personal touches with simple earrings and a warm smile that reached her eyes. Those eyes, Robert noted, had the slight shadowing underneath that spoke of too little sleep. "This is Ray, your new trainee," Steve announced. "Get him up to speed as quickly as possible. We're short-staffed again." Without waiting for a response, Steve headed back to his office. Melissa's smile never faltered. "Welcome to Family Table, Ray. Have you waited tables before?" "A little, but it's been years," Robert replied, sticking to his cover story. "I'm a quick learner, though. Don't worry, we'll take it step by step. The most important thing isn't getting the orders right or being fast. It's making the guests feel welcome." She handed him an apron. "That's something I bet you already know how to do." Her comment, so perfectly aligned with the company's original mission, surprised Robert. In his experience, new staff training typically emphasized procedures and policies, not the emotional experience of the guests. "Let's start with the basics," Melissa continued. "I'll have you shadow me for a few tables. Then you can try taking orders while I back you up." Over the next several hours, Robert followed Melissa through a busy lunch service. Despite being obviously understaffed, he counted 4 servers on the floor when there should have been at least 6. Melissa maintained a calm, cheerful demeanor with every guest. She remembered regular customers' names and preferences, asked about their families, and made menu recommendations tailored to each person's tastes. More impressively, she did all this while quietly coaching Robert, explaining the ordering system, kitchen procedures, and little tricks to improve service. "The coffee station backs up during rush, so I always start a fresh pot when the current one is half full," she explained. "And table 12 gets cold from the air vent, so I offer hot drinks even in summer." By mid-afternoon, as the lunch crowd thinned, Robert had progressed from observing to taking simple orders under Melissa's guidance. His respect for her and all servers grew with every tray he carried and every order he entered into the system. During a brief lull, they paused at the drink station where Melissa quickly ate a few bites of a sandwich between tasks. "Is this your only job?" Robert asked casually. "My main one," Melissa replied. "I also do some bookkeeping for a local business on weekends when my daughter's with her dad." She wrapped up the uneaten portion of her sandwich and tucked it into her apron pocket. "Break's over. Let's check on 14. They should be ready for their check." As the afternoon progressed, Robert observed more concerning details about the restaurant's operations. The kitchen was clearly rushing food preparation, with meals coming out that didn't match the quality standards Family Table had built its reputation on. Portions seemed smaller than they should be, and some ingredients appear to be lower quality than what the company's purchasing guidelines specified. When he mentioned a particularly bland soup to Melissa, she lowered her voice. "We've had a lot of changes in the past year. New suppliers, new recipes that use less expensive ingredients. The guests noticed, but what can we do?" Around 4 p.m., as they prepared for the dinner transition, the front doors opened and Melissa's face lit up with a genuine smile, the brightest Robert had seen all day. "The Collins family," she said warmly. "They come in every Thursday." Robert watched as she greeted a couple in their 40s who were carefully maneuvering a specialized wheelchair through the door. In the chair sat a boy of about 12 with obvious physical disabilities. The child's body was contorted, and he had limited control of his movements, but his eyes were alert and bright. "Tommy," Melissa exclaimed, addressing the boy directly. "I saved your favorite booth. And guess what? We have apple pie today, still warm from the oven." The boy's face transformed with delight, though his verbal response was difficult to understand. Melissa, however, seemed to have no trouble comprehending him. "That's right, with ice cream. I wouldn't forget that part," she assured him, guiding the family to a corner booth that allowed plenty of space for the wheelchair. Robert followed, intrigued by the obvious connection between the server and this family. As Melissa helped them get settled, Mrs. Collins asked quiet questions about menu changes, and Mr. Collins made gentle jokes that caused his son to laugh, a joyful sound that turned heads throughout the restaurant. "They've been coming here for years," another server named Dana explained when she noticed Robert watching. "Tommy has cerebral palsy. Melissa always takes care of them, even switches shifts if needed to make sure she's here on Thursdays." "They seem close," Robert observed. "Melissa understands their situation better than most," Dana replied, then hesitated. "Her daughter Lily has special needs too. Different condition, but she gets it. The challenges, the routines, all of it." Before Robert could ask more, Steve emerged from his office, frowning at the floor activity. "Dana, you have tables waiting. Ray, help clear 7 and 9. We need to turn those tables before the dinner rush." As Robert bussed tables and helped reset them for new guests, he kept finding his attention drawn to Melissa and the Collins family. She had brought Tommy a straw with a special bend in it that made it easier for him to drink independently. When she delivered their food, she automatically cut Tommy's chicken into manageable pieces without being asked and positioned his plate at the perfect angle for his limited reach. These weren't just acts of service. They were acts of genuine care that recognized Tommy's dignity and independence. The dinner rush began in earnest, with every table filling quickly. The kitchen fell behind, tickets piling up and frustration mounting among both staff and customers. Steve remained in his office except for brief appearances to criticize without helping. "We need to pick up the pace, people," he announced during one such appearance. "These ticket times are unacceptable." Robert, now taking orders for his own small section with Melissa checking in periodically, found himself swept into the controlled chaos of a short-staffed restaurant during peak hours. Despite his executive experience, he struggled to keep up with the demands of remembering orders, entering them correctly, timing refills, and addressing complaints about slow service. Through it all, Melissa somehow managed her larger section while still finding moments to assist others, including Robert. She never appeared rushed, though Robert knew she must be running on pure adrenaline. At one point, he passed the Collins family's table and noticed a situation developing. Mrs. Collins was trying to help Tommy eat, while simultaneously comforting their younger daughter, who had spilled her drink. Mr. Collins had stepped away, presumably to the restroom. Tommy's food was getting cold as he waited for assistance. Robert was about to step in when Melissa appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. Without a word, she grabbed a clean napkin to help with the spill, then pulled up a chair beside Tommy. "May I?" she asked Mrs. Collins, who gave a grateful nod. With practiced ease, Melissa began to help Tommy eat, holding the fork at just the right angle and speaking to him about his day at school between bites. There was no pity in her interaction, only respect and genuine interest. Robert watched, transfixed, as Melissa, who he knew hadn't had time to eat anything herself since that half-sandwich hours ago, prioritized this child's needs above her own exhaustion and hunger. She wasn't performing for management or seeking recognition. In fact, with Steve hidden away in his office, no one in authority would ever know about this small act of compassion. A lump formed in Robert's throat. This was exactly what he had founded Family Table to be, a place where everyone felt valued, where hospitality went beyond service to create meaningful human connections. Somehow, despite the cost-cutting, the staffing issues, and the absent management, Melissa had preserved that original vision. As the evening continued, Robert gathered more pieces of Melissa's story through brief conversations with her and comments from other staff. She had worked at Family Table for over 7 years. Her daughter Lily, now 10, had a rare genetic condition that required regular medical treatments. Melissa had once been on a management track but stepped back to a server position when Lily's condition was diagnosed, needing the more flexible hours despite the lower pay. "She's the heart of this place," Dana told him during a quiet moment. Guests come back specifically asking for her section. New servers learn more from watching her for a day than they do from all the official training videos. Yet despite her obvious value, Melissa seemed to receive little recognition from management. If anything, Steve appeared annoyed by her thoroughness with guests, repeatedly reminding her about table turn times and service metrics. Around 8 p.m., as the dinner rush finally began to subside, Robert overheard a conversation that made his blood boil. "Melissa, we need to talk," Steve said, cornering her by the kitchen entrance. "I noticed you spent nearly 15 minutes with the Collins family earlier. That's not acceptable during peak hours." "Tommy needed help with his meal," Melissa explained calmly. "His mother was dealing with their younger daughter." "That's not our problem," Steve insisted. "We're running a restaurant, not a caregiving service. I need you focused on turning tables efficiently, not babysitting customers." Melissa's calm demeanor never faltered, but Robert could see the tension in her shoulders. The Collins family has been loyal customers for years. They specifically come when they know I'm working. And they order the cheapest items on the menu and take up a table for twice as long as other customers, Steve retorted. From a business perspective, they're not the kind of customers we should be prioritizing. Robert had heard enough. Forgetting his undercover role for a moment, he stepped forward. Excuse me, but isn't Family Table's mission to make every guest feel at home? That's what Melissa was doing. Steve turned, clearly irritated by the interruption. You've been here less than a day, Ray. When you understand the business side of restaurant management, then you can have an opinion. For now, just focus on learning the job. Robert bit his tongue, reminding himself that revealing his identity now would undermine the purpose of his undercover mission. He needed to see the full picture before taking action. Sorry, he mumbled, playing the role of the chastised new employee. Just trying to understand the culture. Steve gave him a dismissive look before turning back to Melissa. Just keep an eye on your time management. We have service metrics to maintain. After Steve walked away, Melissa gave Robert a small, grateful smile. Thanks for trying. It's nice to know someone still remembers what this place is supposed to be about. As his first day drew to a close, Robert found himself both troubled and inspired. The operational issues were worse than he'd feared. Cost-cutting had clearly compromised food quality. Staffing levels were dangerously low, and management had lost sight of the company's core values. Yet in Melissa, he'd found the perfect embodiment of the hospitality that had built Family Table's initial success. Despite everything working against her, poor management, reduced resources, personal challenges, she maintained an unwavering commitment to genuine care for every guest. That night, back in his hotel room, Robert called Jennifer. "How was your first day undercover?" she asked. Robert sighed heavily. Eye-opening. We've got serious problems with how the restaurants are being managed. The regional directors have been pushing cost-cutting measures that are killing everything we built the brand on. That's fixable, Jennifer pointed out. You can change policies. Yes, Robert agreed. But I also found something unexpected, something remarkable. There's a server named Melissa who embodies everything Family Table was meant to be. Despite all the challenges, she's maintained the spirit of true hospitality. He described what he'd witnessed with the Collins family. The moment when Melissa had put Tommy's needs before her own without hesitation or expectation of recognition. You should have seen her, Jen, he said, emotion creeping into his voice. She wasn't just serving a customer. She was honoring his humanity. And I found out later that her own daughter has special needs. She works these long shifts, deals with a terrible manager, then goes home to be a caregiver there too. Sounds like someone who deserves recognition, Jennifer said softly. More than recognition, Robert replied. She deserves a company that values what she brings to the table. Her compassion, her commitment to genuine hospitality. I've been focusing so much on growth and profitability that I've let our original mission get diluted. He paused, his mind racing with ideas. I'm going to spend the next few days learning more about Melissa, about the operational issues, about how we've drifted from our values. Then I'm going to make some major changes. I know that tone, Jennifer said with a chuckle. Should I alert the executive team that a hurricane is coming? Not yet, Robert replied. But they should definitely prepare for stormy weather. As he ended the call, Robert pulled out his notebook and began jotting down observations and questions. Tomorrow he would continue his undercover role, watching and learning more about Melissa's extraordinary impact on her guests and fellow employees. He had come looking for operational problems to fix. Instead, he had found something much more valuable, a reminder of why he had started Family Table in the first place, and a person who exemplified the values he had always intended the company to uphold. The question now was how to honor that discovery in a way that would transform not just one restaurant, but the entire company. Over the next 3 days, Robert continued his undercover work at the restaurant, absorbing every detail of its operations while paying particular attention to Melissa. Each day deepened his respect for her and his concern about the restaurant's management. He learned that Melissa consistently took the most challenging shifts, often working doubles when other servers called out. She lived in a modest apartment about 30 minutes from the restaurant and shared custody of her daughter Lily with her ex-husband, who had remarried and moved to a more affluent suburb. Lily's school is closer to his place, Melissa explained during a rare break they shared. Better special education program, too. But the commute can be rough, especially when I closed the night before. Despite these challenges, Melissa never complained. She maintained a small notebook where she recorded regular customers' preferences and important details about their lives: anniversaries, grandchildren's names, favorite desserts, all to make their dining experience more personal. Robert also confirmed his suspicions about the operational changes that were undermining the restaurant quality. Steve proudly showed Ray how he'd reduced food costs by substituting cheaper ingredients and cutting portion sizes. He boasted about decreasing labor costs by scheduling fewer staff members than corporate guidelines recommended. All of these efficiencies were designed to improve the location's profitability metrics, the primary factor in determining management bonuses. The guests barely notice, Steve insisted. And if they do complain, we just offer them a free dessert. Costs us less than doing it right the first time. Robert struggled to maintain his cover while hearing his company's values so blatantly distorted. What had started as a mission to create genuine hospitality had devolved into cynical profit maximization at guest expense. On his fourth day undercover, Robert arrived early and found Melissa in the break room, her eyes red as she spoke quietly on her phone. "I understand, but isn't there any way to reschedule?" she was saying. "I've already missed 2 of Lily's appointments this month because of work." "Yes, I know how busy Dr. Matthews is. I'll try to figure something out. Thank you." She ended the call with a heavy sigh, not immediately noticing Robert's presence. When she looked up, she quickly wiped her eyes and forced a smile. "Oh, hey, Ray. Early today, too. Everything okay?" he asked gently. Melissa hesitated, then shook her head slightly. "Lily has an important evaluation with her specialist next Wednesday, but they just changed my schedule here. Steve says we're short-staffed, and he needs me to work a double. I asked if we could switch shifts, but..." She gestured helplessly. Doctor appointments are scheduled months in advance, and with Lily's condition, consistent follow-up is crucial. "Can't your ex-husband take her?" Robert asked. "He's on a business trip that week. It would be him otherwise." She straightened her shoulders. "I'll figure something out. I always do. Maybe Dana can cover a few hours." Before Robert could respond, Steve appeared in the doorway. "Pre-shift meeting in 5 minutes. Melissa, corporate's sending some VIP today for a quality check. I'm putting them in your section since you're the best we've got. Make sure everything's perfect." When Steve left, Robert turned to Melissa. "What happens if you just tell him you can't work Wednesday?" Her laugh held no humor. "I'll be taken off the schedule for 2 weeks as discipline. It's happened before. I can't afford that, especially with Lily's medical bills." She stood, adjusting her apron. "Like I said, I'll figure something out. I always do." Throughout that day's shift, Robert observed Melissa with new eyes. Despite her personal concerns, she gave each guest her full attention, turning routine dining experiences into moments of genuine connection. When an elderly man dining alone mentioned it was his first time eating out since his wife's recent passing, Melissa spent extra time with him, sharing stories and eventually bringing him a complimentary slice of pie, because Marge would want you to have her favorite. The man left with tears in his eyes and a generous tip that Melissa immediately shared with the busser who had helped her care for his table. That evening, the Collins family returned for their weekly visit. Tommy's face lit up when he saw Melissa, and she greeted him with a high five that accommodated his limited mobility. "I've been practicing my joke for you," she told him as she led the family to their usual booth. "What did the ocean say to the beach?" Tommy made a sound of curiosity, his eyes bright with anticipation. "Nothing, it just waved." Melissa delivered the punchline with exaggerated enthusiasm that made Tommy laugh with delight. As she took their order, Robert noticed how she positioned herself at eye level with Tommy, including him in every question and decision. When another server might have directed all communication to his parents, Melissa recognized and honored his agency, however limited his verbal responses might be. During their meal, a situation similar to their previous visit arose. Mrs. Collins needed to take their daughter to the restroom, and Mr. Collins was occupied with a phone call about Tommy's upcoming medical procedure. Tommy's dinner sat before him, growing cold as he waited for assistance. Once again, Melissa noticed immediately. Despite juggling several other tables during the busy dinner service, she made her way to Tommy, pulling up a chair beside him. "Would you like some help, buddy?" she asked, respecting his independence by asking rather than assuming. Tommy nodded, and Melissa began to assist him, cutting his food into manageable bites and guiding his hand as needed. All the while, she chatted with him about a new superhero movie he'd seen, treating him as a valued conversation partner rather than a task to complete. Robert happened to be nearby, refilling water glasses, when he overheard Tommy ask Melissa a question about her daughter. "Lily's doing great," Melissa replied. "She got an A on her science project, the one about butterflies I told you about last week. She's pretty proud of herself." Tommy made another comment, difficult for Robert to understand, but clearly comprehensible to Melissa. "That's right. It's almost time for her big doctor appointment, the one that will help decide if she's ready for the new treatment." Melissa's voice remained light, though Robert caught the flash of worry in her eyes, no doubt thinking about the scheduling conflict she'd mentioned earlier. What struck Robert most forcefully was watching Melissa assist Tommy with his meal when he knew for certain she hadn't eaten anything herself all day. He'd observe her rushing from task to task without a break, yet here she was, patiently helping the child while her own needs went unmet. It wasn't just good customer service. It was a profound expression of empathy and humanity that transcended the transactional nature of restaurant work. In that moment, Robert made his decision. He had seen enough. After the Collins family departed, with Tommy insisting on personally handing Melissa his mother's generous tip, Robert approached her at the service station. "Melissa, can I speak with you after the shift ends? It's important." She looked surprised but nodded. "Sure, Ray. Everything okay?" "More than okay," he assured her. "Just need a few minutes of your time." For the remainder of the shift, Robert mentally prepared what he would say, not just to Melissa, but to the entire staff. As a founder and CEO, he'd given countless speeches and presentations, but somehow this felt more significant than any boardroom address. When the last table had been cleared and closing duties completed, Robert asked Steve to gather all staff members in the dining room. The manager looked annoyed at the unusual request from a trainee, but complied when Robert hinted that it related to the corporate VIP visit mentioned earlier. With the entire team assembled, servers, kitchen staff, bussers, and hosts, Robert took a deep breath and stepped to the center of the room. "First, I want to thank all of you for allowing me to work alongside you these past few days," he began. "I've learned a tremendous amount." He reached up and removed his fake glasses, then ran a hand through his hair, musing the careful styling that had been part of his disguise. "My name isn't Ray Thomas," he continued, meeting their confused stares. "I'm Robert Turner, the founder and CEO of Family Table Restaurants." A collective gasp rippled through the group. Steve's face drained of color. Melissa's eyes widened in shock. "I've been working undercover to experience firsthand what's happening in our restaurants, both the challenges and the successes. What I've found has been enlightening, concerning, and ultimately inspiring." Robert turned to face Steve directly. "I've discovered that in pursuit of better profit margins, we've compromised the very values this company was built upon. Reduced staffing has created impossible workloads. Cost-cutting has degraded food quality. And most concerningly, we've lost sight of our core mission, to make every guest feel truly welcome and valued." Steve began to stammer a response, but Robert held up a hand to silence him. "We'll discuss the management issues privately. For now, I want to focus on someone who represents everything right about Family Table." He turned to Melissa, who stood frozen in surprise. "Melissa, over the past 4 days, I've watched you demonstrate extraordinary care, compassion, and professionalism in circumstances that would challenge anyone. You've maintained the true spirit of hospitality despite systemic obstacles. But what moved me most was watching your interaction with Tommy Collins." Melissa blushed, looking uncomfortable with the attention. "I was just doing my job," she said softly. "No," Robert countered gently. "You were doing much more than your job. When you sat with Tommy, helping him eat his meal when you hadn't eaten all day yourself, that wasn't in any employee handbook. That was pure human kindness. And it reminded me why I started this company in the first place." He addressed the entire group again. Family Table began with a simple idea: that a restaurant could be more than just a place to eat. It could be a place where people truly feel welcomed, seen, and valued. Somewhere along the way, as we grew, we started prioritizing profits over people. That ends today. Robert outlined immediate changes that would be implemented: restoring proper staffing levels, returning to the original recipe standards, and revising management incentives to emphasize guest satisfaction rather than just cost control. As for you, Steve, he said, turning to the manager who now looked thoroughly uncomfortable, we'll be reviewing your leadership approach. Family Table needs managers who understand that our financial success flows from our commitment to genuine hospitality, not from cutting corners at guests' expense. Then Robert turned back to Melissa. And for you, I have something special in mind. Family Table is creating a new position, Director of Guest Experience, responsible for training staff across all our locations on the art of true hospitality. Given what I've witnessed these past days, there's no one better qualified to develop and lead this program than you. Melissa gasped. Me? But I don't have a college degree or management experience. You have something more valuable, Robert assured her. You have genuine empathy and an innate understanding of what makes people feel welcomed and valued. That can't be taught in any business school. He explained that the position would offer significantly higher pay, flexible hours that could accommodate Lily's needs, comprehensive benefits, including expanded medical coverage, and the opportunity to make a company-wide impact. Additionally, Robert continued, I understand you're facing a scheduling conflict with your daughter's important medical appointment next week. Consider that resolved. You have the day off with pay. In fact, take the whole week to be with Lily. Your position will be waiting when you're ready. Tears welled in Melissa's eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll help me restore Family Table to what it was always meant to be, Robert replied. A place where both our guests and our team members feel like they truly matter. Melissa nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Around her, her fellow employees broke into spontaneous applause, a genuine expression of support for someone whose quiet dedication had earned their respect. In the days that followed, Robert made good on his promises. Steve was reassigned to the corporate office for retraining in the company's values and management philosophy. Staffing levels were restored across all locations, and a comprehensive review of food quality was initiated. Most significantly, Melissa accepted the new position and proved to be even more exceptional than Robert had anticipated. Her training program, built around authentic human connection rather than scripted interactions, transformed service standards across the entire chain. Employee satisfaction scores rose, customer complaints dropped, and within 6 months, Family Table's reputation for genuine hospitality was stronger than ever. As for Tommy Collins and his family, they continued their weekly visits, now receiving VIP treatment as honored guests whose special connection with Melissa had helped spark a company-wide renaissance. Tommy even participated in a promotional video about Family Table's commitment to making every guest feel welcome, regardless of ability or circumstance. 1 year after his Undercover experience, Robert hosted a special dinner at the flagship Family Table location, honoring the company's renewed commitment to its founding values. Melissa was there with her daughter Lily, whose health had improved significantly thanks to the new treatment she'd been able to receive with better insurance coverage and more flexible scheduling for follow-up care. You know, Melissa told Robert as they watched Lily and Tommy excitedly comparing notes about a video game they both played, I almost didn't come to work that day, the day you saw me with Tommy. Lily wasn't feeling well, and I was exhausted from working doubles all week. What made you decide to come in? Robert asked. Melissa smiled, watching the children. I knew Tommy would be disappointed if I wasn't there for his weekly visit. Some things are more important than being tired. Robert nodded, reflecting on how close he had come to missing this pivotal moment. This chance to rediscover his company's soul through the simple, powerful act of one employee putting another person's needs before her own. Some people go their entire careers without making the kind of impact you've had, he told her. Not just on Family Table, but on me personally. You reminded me why I started this business in the first place. I was just doing what felt right, Melissa replied with characteristic modesty. That's exactly it, Robert said. In business, We often overcomplicate things with metrics and strategies. But sometimes the most powerful question we can ask is simply, what feels right? What honors the humanity in each person we encounter? As he looked around the bustling restaurant, at families sharing meals, at staff members providing attentive service, at the genuine warmth that now permeated the atmosphere, Robert felt a profound sense of gratitude. His undercover journey had begun as a fact-finding mission about operational problems. Instead, it had become a rediscovery of purpose, a reminder that true success comes not from cutting corners, but from genuinely caring for people. And it had all started with one simple, powerful moment: a waitress setting aside her own needs to help a child, not because anyone was watching, but because it was the right thing to do. 6 months later, Family Table was featured in a national business magazine as a case study in values-driven leadership. The article highlighted the company's remarkable turnaround and innovative approach to hospitality training. At the center of the story was Melissa, now a rising star in the company and a sought-after speaker on compassionate customer service. Her training program had been adopted by other restaurant chains, and she had been invited to consult with hospitality businesses across the country. For the photo accompanying the article, Melissa insisted on including Tommy and his family, along with her daughter Lily, the people who had inspired her approach to genuine care. The business world often teaches us that success comes from hard metrics: profit margins, cost controls, efficiency, Robert was quoted in the article. But what we rediscover at Family Table is that true, sustainable success flows from something much more basic: seeing the humanity in each person who walks through our doors, whether guest or team member. The magazine also noted that Family Table had implemented groundbreaking policies for the restaurant industry: living wages for all employees, comprehensive benefits, including enhanced medical coverage for families with special needs children, and scheduling practices that accommodated caregiving responsibilities. These weren't just ethical decisions, Robert explained. They were sound business strategies. When we invest in our people and create an environment where genuine care is possible, the financial results follow naturally. Our turnover has decreased by 67%. Customer loyalty has increased. Sales are up across all locations. What the article didn't capture, what perhaps no business analysis could fully articulate, was the profound human impact of these changes. Children like Tommy now found welcome in a world that often overlooked them. Parents of children with special needs, like Melissa, could pursue meaningful careers without sacrificing their family's well-being. And thousands of employees across the Family Table chain now worked in an environment that valued their humanity over their productivity metrics. All because one CEO decided to see his business through new eyes, to step out of the executive suite and into the daily reality of his frontline workers. And because one employee, despite every systemic pressure to focus solely on efficiency, chose compassion instead. In a world increasingly driven by automation, algorithms, and artificial intelligence, Robert Turner and Melissa Carter had demonstrated the irreplaceable power of human connection. The simple act of one person truly seeing another and responding with kindness. That, more than any business strategy, was the secret ingredient in Family Table's recipe for success. 3 years after his undercover experience, Robert announced a significant company initiative, the Melissa Carter Scholarship Fund, providing educational support for Family Table employees raising children with special needs or disabilities. This fund honors the woman whose example changed not just our company, but my understanding of what true leadership looks like, Robert explained at the launch event. Sometimes the most powerful leadership doesn't come from the executive suite. It comes from the person who, without recognition or reward, simply does what's right because it's right. Melissa, now a vice president at Family Table and a nationally recognized advocate for inclusive customer service, accepted the honor with characteristic humility. "I never set out to change a company or launch a movement," she said. "I just wanted to make sure that every person who came to my tables, especially those like Tommy who might be overlooked elsewhere, felt genuinely welcomed. If that's created something larger, then I'm grateful." But the real heroes are the children and families who navigate a world that isn't always designed with them in mind. Tommy Collins, now a teenager who had become something of a mascot for Family Table, presented Melissa with a plaque commemorating the scholarship fund. Though his physical disabilities remained significant, his confidence had blossomed through years of being treated with dignity and respect at Family Table. "Ms. Melissa showed me that I matter," Tommy said, reading carefully from notes he had prepared. "Now she's helping other kids like me know they matter too." As Robert watched this exchange, he reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought them all to this moment. A chance observation during an undercover assignment. A simple act of kindness that most would never have noticed. A decision to honor that kindness by changing not just one restaurant, but an entire company culture. The business world was full of complicated strategies, elaborate metrics, and sophisticated technologies. But sometimes the most transformative moments came from the simplest human interactions: a CEO willing to see, a server willing to care, and a child whose needs brought out the best in both of them. That was the real story behind Family Table success. Not just good food or efficient service, but genuine human connection. The kind that nourishes not just the body, but the spirit. The kind that reminds us that in a world where algorithms increasingly shape our experiences, the most powerful force remains simple human kindness. And it all began because a boss decided to look beyond spreadsheets and strategy documents to see what was really happening in his restaurants. Because he witnessed a moment of compassion that would have gone unnoticed by most. And because he recognized that moment for what it was: not just good customer service, but a glimpse of what business at its best could truly be. The undercover boss had discovered something far more valuable than operational problems to fix. He had rediscovered the heart of his company in the actions of one remarkable employee who knew that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply to help someone else before helping ourselves.